She probably started saying it about 5 years into our marriage. And when she started to say it, she would say it every year from that point on, sometimes even twice, occasionally 3 times. But the longer we'd been married and the more we knew each other, the more frequent she'd say it. In fact, in the last couple of years, she must have said it a dozen times. I was married to Florina for 39 years, and she would say this when we're having a deep or intimate conversation. She'd look at me with her beautiful eyes and she'd say, "John, if I die first, it's okay for you to get married again." And I'd say, "Floss." And she'd say, "Listen to me, I'm just telling you, if I die first, it's okay for you to marry again." And I would say, "Well, what about if I die first?" And she would say, "Well, that's different." And I'd say, "How is that different?" And she'd say, "It just is." I always thought it was a little bit weird that Florina would bring this up, that if she died first, that I could marry again, because who was the sick one around here? I'd had this mystery illness for a number of years that nobody ever got on top of. And I'd had a stroke and then 3 heart attacks as well. So who was the one who was going to check out of this life first? It was probably going to be me. A couple of years into our marriage, we made a pact with each other. We worked out how we were going to die together. We were going to do it at 100 years old with all our marbles still intact. Hold hands, go to sleep and wake up in the arms of the Lord. Unsurprisingly, it didn't quite happen like that. One of the things I loved doing with Florina was spending time with young couples that were about to be married. You would give them some skills that they would need for their married life, but also we'd share some of our own experiences that we'd had over a number of years. And one of the things that we insisted on when we were doing that was that the vows were written correctly. It's a really serious moment in a wedding and it shouldn't be taken flippantly. I got a bit tired of hearing at weddings things like, "I promise to give you a pink and a white marshmallow in your hot chocolate every day, and every Sunday we'll sit up on the cliff overlooking the beach and watch the sunset together." Turns out that making promises to somebody you're going to spend the rest of your life with is far bigger than a couple of things plonked into a cup of cocoa and a golden sunset. And so we would ask them to consider even the traditional ones, which would say to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until death do us part. And I love the looks on their faces after they had said these things to each other, because it's a really poignant moment when you're saying these things to somebody that you have promised to love and be with forever. On June the 22nd in 2020, I was sitting with my wife, but now it wasn't at home here or in a park or watching grandchildren. It was in a hospital room now because she had developed this thing called blastoid mantle cell lymphoma, and she wasn't long for this life. And I'll never forget this moment. She didn't have the use of anything except for her right arm at this stage, but she could still talk, which was a real blessing for both of us. And it would have been 2 a.m. in the morning, and she leaned forward towards me and she said, "John, not if, but when I die, it's okay for you to get married again." And I said, "Floss, not in a million years." And she leaned forward even closer and she said, "Correct answer." We laughed and we laughed and we laughed. I kissed her. She went to sleep. And 2 days later, she was gone. For us, it was always going to be until death do us part. There was never going to be anybody else for me. There was never going to be anybody else for Florina.